Imagine holding millions of reasons in your wallet that could completely change how you see the future of digital money, while at the same time, one of the most well known financial thinkers is quietly paying attention to the same asset you are looking at. What if the conversation around XRP is no longer just about price speculation, but about a deeper financial shift that big names and serious money are starting to notice? In this video breakdown, we explore why large holders believe in XRP, what this massive number really represents, and why discussions from financial voices connected to global markets are bringing more attention toward Ripple and its role in the future of money. When we look at a statement like owning 7,000 XRP, the first thing that needs to be understood is not just the number itself, but the level of belief and long term thinking that comes behind such a position. In the crypto market, holding a large amount of any asset is not only about wealth, but also about confidence in the future role that asset may play in global systems. XRP in this case is often discussed because it is not just a normal cryptocurrency. It is designed to move money across borders in a faster and more efficient way compared to traditional banking systems. The idea behind holding millions of XRP is usually connected to expectations of future adoption. Many investors believe that if financial institutions continue to adopt blockchain based solutions for payments, then assets like XRP could become more relevant over time. This belief is based on the purpose of Ripple's technology, which focuses on settlement speed, low transaction cost, and global liquidity movement. Unlike many digital assets that are mainly used for trading or store of value, XRP is often positioned as a bridge currency in cross border transactions, which gives it a different type of long term narrative in the financial world. At the same time, when we hear names like Jim Rickards being mentioned in discussions related to Ripple or XRP, it brings an additional layer of attention from traditional financial thinking. Jim Rickards is known for his background in macroeconomics and financial system analysis. And when individuals like him are linked in discussions around digital assets, it often reflects growing curiosity from traditional finance circles. This does not automatically mean endorsement, but it does show that XRP is being observed in wider financial conversations beyond just crypto communities. The interesting part of this situation is how market perception changes when large numbers and influential discussions come together. In financial markets, perception often plays a major role in shaping momentum. When people see large holdings or hear respected financial voices mentioning blockchain based payment systems, it can create a sense that something bigger is developing in the background. This is where XRP often becomes a topic of debate because it sits at the intersection of technology and global banking infrastructure. However, it is also important to understand that holding a large amount of any asset, including XRP, does not guarantee any specific outcome. The crypto market is still highly unpredictable, and prices are influenced by many factors such as regulation, adoption speed, market liquidity, and overall investor sentiment. Even projects with strong use cases can go through long periods of slow movement before any major shift happens. That is why large holdings are usually seen as long term positioning rather than short term expectation. Another important angle in this discussion is the psychological aspect of accumulation. When investors decide to hold millions of units of an asset like XRP, it often reflects a belief in future scarcity or increased demand. They are not just reacting to current price movements, but are positioning themselves based on what they believe could happen years ahead. This type of thinking is common in early stage technology adoption cycles, where the real value is only fully recognized after widespread usage begins. In the case of XRP, supporters often point toward its potential role in global payments, especially if financial institutions continue exploring faster settlement systems. Critics, on the other hand, highlight regulatory uncertainty and competition from other blockchain projects. This balance of optimism and caution is what keeps XRP in constant discussion within the financial space. Overall, the key idea behind this first part is understanding that large XRP holdings are not just numbers, but reflections of belief in future financial systems, combined with growing attention from both crypto and traditional finance perspectives. When the discussion moves beyond individual holdings and into the wider financial environment, XRP starts to appear in a different light. It is not only retail investors who are paying attention to it, but also people who study global economic systems, banking structures, and long term financial trends. The reason for this interest is not based on hype, but on how cross border payments actually work today and how inefficient the current system still is in many cases. In the traditional financial system, sending money across countries often involves multiple banks, intermediaries, delays, and high fees. This system has been in place for decades, but it has not significantly changed in terms of speed or cost efficiency. This is where Ripple's technology enters the discussion. The network associated with XRP aims to reduce friction in global payments by acting as a bridge between different currencies and financial institutions, making settlement faster and more direct compared to legacy systems. This practical use case is one of the main reasons XRP continues to be part of financial conversations. Unlike many digital assets that are mainly driven by speculation, XRP is often evaluated based on its potential utility in real world financial infrastructure. That does not mean it is guaranteed to be widely adopted, but it does mean it is being considered in a different category compared to many other cryptocurrencies. When respected financial analysts and macroeconomic thinkers like Jim Rickards are mentioned in discussions around blockchain and payment systems, it adds a layer of seriousness to the conversation. Rickards is known for analyzing global monetary systems, central banking policies, and financial crises. So when XRP appears in the same discussion space as traditional financial systems, it reflects growing curiosity about whether blockchain based solutions could eventually play a role in global settlement networks. However, it is important to keep this perspective balanced. Interest from financial thinkers does not automatically mean adoption will happen at scale. The global financial system is highly regulated, deeply interconnected, and resistant to rapid change. Even if a technology is more efficient, it still needs approval, trust, and integration across multiple institutions before it can become part of mainstream usage. Another reason XRP remains in focus is its positioning within liquidity management. In simple terms, liquidity means how easily money can move from one currency to another without delay or loss of value. Ripple's system is designed to improve this process by using digital assets as a bridge between different fiat currencies. This concept is attractive in theory because it could reduce costs for banks and financial institutions, especially in regions where cross border transactions are frequent. At the same time, there is ongoing debate about how much of this potential will actually turn into real world usage. Some financial institutions have explored blockchain based settlement solutions, while others remain cautious due to regulatory uncertainty and internal risk policies. This creates a situation where XRP exists in a space of possibility rather than confirmed global adoption. Market participants often react differently to this type of uncertainty. Some see it as an early stage opportunity, believing that adoption will grow over time as systems modernize. Others remain skeptical, focusing on the lack of guaranteed integration into major banking networks. This difference in opinion is one of the reasons XRP continues to generate strong debate in financial communities. What makes this situation more interesting is the long term transformation happening in global finance. Digital payments, central bank digital currencies, and blockchain infrastructure are all being explored at different levels around the world. In this environment, assets like XRP are often evaluated not just for what they are today, but for what role they might play if the financial system continues to evolve toward faster and more digital settlement methods. So, the growing attention from both investors and financial thinkers is not random. It is tied to broader questions about how money will move in the future, how banks will adapt, and whether blockchain technology will become part of that evolution in a meaningful way. XRP sits directly inside that conversation, which is why it continues to attract interest even during uncertain market conditions. To understand why XRP continues to stay in financial discussions, it is important to look deeper at the system behind it rather than only focusing on price movements or market speculation. The real focus is on how money moves globally today and how much inefficiency still exists in that process. Every day, trillions of dollars move across borders, but the infrastructure behind these transfers is still based on older systems that involve multiple layers of verification, banks, and settlement delays. This is where Ripple's ecosystem becomes part of the conversation. The technology developed around XRP is designed to act as a bridge between different financial systems. Instead of relying on multiple intermediaries, the goal is to allow value to move more directly between institutions using blockchain based settlement solutions. This concept is often referred to as improving liquidity and reducing friction in cross border payments. In simple terms, liquidity is the ability to convert one currency into another quickly and without major cost. In the traditional banking system, this process can take days and involve multiple fees depending on the countries involved. Ripple's model aims to reduce this time significantly by using digital assets as a temporary bridge during settlement. XRP is often discussed in this context because of its role as a potential liquidity tool within this system. The reason this matters is because global finance is under constant pressure to become faster and more efficient. Businesses, banks, and payment providers all depend on quick settlement times to maintain smooth operations. Even small delays in cross border transfers can create operational challenges, especially in international trade and remittance services. This is why blockchain based payment solutions have gained attention over the past few years. When we connect this back to broader financial discussions, it becomes clear why analysts and macro thinkers continue to observe projects like Ripple. Even individuals like Jim Rickards, who focus on global monetary systems and financial stability, are often referenced in conversations where digital assets meet traditional finance. The reason is not that XRP is being fully endorsed, but that it represents a possible shift in how global settlement systems might evolve over time. However, it is also important to understand that adoption at this level is not simple. Global banking systems are built on trust, regulation, and long established infrastructure. Changing or integrating new technology into this system requires coordination between multiple countries, institutions, and regulatory bodies. This process is slow and, in many cases, conservative by design. That is why even promising technologies can take years or even decades to achieve full scale adoption. At the same time, Ripple's approach has been to work within the existing financial system rather than completely replacing it. Instead of trying to remove banks from the process, the idea is to improve how banks communicate and transfer value across borders. This is a key difference compared to many other blockchain projects that aim for full decentralization without institutional involvement. This hybrid approach is one of the reasons XRP remains in ongoing discussions. It is not positioned as a replacement for traditional finance, but rather as a tool that could potentially enhance it. This makes it more appealing to institutions that are looking for efficiency improvements without fully abandoning existing frameworks. Still, the outcome of this vision depends on many external factors. Regulatory clarity is one of the biggest challenges. Financial authorities across different regions have different views on digital assets, and this creates uncertainty for large scale integration. Without clear global rules, institutions often move cautiously, which slows down adoption. Despite these challenges, the idea of faster global money movement continues to gain importance. As international trade expands and digital payments become more common, the demand for efficient settlement systems increases. This is the environment in which XRP continues to be evaluated, not as a guaranteed solution, but as a potential part of a much larger transformation in financial infrastructure. So the focus in this part is not just on Ripple as a company or XRP as a digital asset, but on the broader shift in how global money movement is being reimagined. It is about efficiency, speed, and integration within an evolving financial system that is still in transition between traditional banking and modern digital solutions. When any asset becomes widely discussed in financial markets, especially something like XRP, it is no longer just about technology or use case alone. It also becomes heavily influenced by human psychology, expectations, and speculation. In many ways, the price movement and public discussion around XRP are shaped as much by emotions and belief systems as they are by actual financial adoption progress. One of the main reasons XRP remains in constant debate is because it sits in a unique position between traditional finance and the crypto market. On one side, it is linked to payment infrastructure ideas and institutional usage. On the other side, it is still traded in a highly speculative market where retail investors react strongly to news, rumors, and broader market sentiment. This combination creates a situation where expectations often move faster than actual real world implementation. In financial markets, perception often leads reality in the short term. When investors believe that an asset may have future importance in global finance, they begin to position themselves early. This early positioning creates price movements even before full adoption happens. XRP has often experienced this kind of cycle where attention increases during moments of regulatory news, partnerships, or macroeconomic discussions, even if actual usage growth remains gradual. At the same time, large holders of XRP, sometimes referred to as long term investors or whales, play a significant role in shaping market behavior. When large amounts of supply are held rather than actively sold, it reduces circulating liquidity in the market. This can influence volatility and create stronger reactions when buying or selling pressure changes. However, it is important to understand that holding large amounts does not guarantee price direction. It only affects how the market reacts to demand changes. The involvement of financial thinkers like Jim Rickards in broader discussions about monetary systems also contributes to the psychological layer of XRP's market presence. Even if such individuals are not directly involved in crypto investment discussions, their analysis of global financial systems often overlaps with topics like digital currencies, cross border payments, and liquidity structures. This creates a bridge in public perception between traditional financial analysis and blockchain based assets. However, speculation can also create unrealistic expectations. In many crypto markets, price predictions and future assumptions often spread faster than verified adoption data. This leads to cycles of optimism and correction. When expectations are too high compared to actual progress, markets often experience pullbacks. This is not unique to XRP. It happens across all emerging technologies that are still in the adoption phase. Another important factor is regulatory uncertainty. Markets do not like uncertainty, and XRP has experienced periods where legal and regulatory discussions have significantly influenced sentiment. When regulations are unclear, institutional participation becomes cautious, and this slows down momentum. On the other hand, any positive regulatory development can quickly shift market sentiment in the opposite direction. It is also important to understand that global financial transformation does not happen overnight. Even if blockchain based solutions are more efficient, the existing financial system is deeply established. Banks, payment networks, and central institutions operate on long term systems that require stability and security above all else. Because of this, change happens gradually rather than suddenly, which can sometimes frustrate investors who expect faster results. This slow transition creates a gap between expectation and reality, and that gap is where most speculation happens. XRP exists right inside this gap, which is why it attracts both strong believers and strong critics at the same time. Supporters focus on long term potential and infrastructure integration, while critics focus on delays, competition, and regulatory challenges. In the end, market psychology plays a major role in how XRP is perceived at any given time. Even without immediate large scale adoption, attention from investors, analysts, and financial thinkers keeps the asset in active discussion. This ongoing attention is what maintains its relevance in the broader financial conversation, even during uncertain or slow market phases. When all the previous points are combined, the most important conclusion is that XRP cannot be understood only through short term excitement, price predictions, or viral financial claims. It has to be viewed within the larger context of how global money systems evolve, how technology adoption happens in finance, and how slowly institutions actually integrate new infrastructure into existing frameworks. The idea of holding millions of XRP or seeing influential financial discussions linked to assets like XRP creates attention. But attention alone is not the same as guaranteed financial outcome. The reality is that any large holding, whether it is 7,000 XRP or any other amount, represents a personal belief in future value rather than a confirmed result. In financial markets, belief can be powerful because it drives early positioning, but it also carries risk because future developments are never fully predictable. Even strong narratives around payment systems, liquidity solutions, or institutional adoption remain dependent on real world execution, regulatory approval, and actual usage by financial institutions over time. The involvement of well known financial thinkers such as Jim Rickards in broader conversations about monetary systems and global finance adds an interesting layer to the discussion, but it should not be misunderstood as a direct signal of guaranteed outcomes. Analysts often explore multiple scenarios when discussing the future of money, and blockchain based systems are one of many possibilities being evaluated in modern financial theory. This does not confirm adoption, it only reflects ongoing analysis of evolving financial technologies. When looking at XRP from a long term perspective, the most important factor is utility. If blockchain based payment systems continue to grow, and if financial institutions increasingly demand faster and cheaper cross border settlement methods, then assets like XRP may remain part of that conversation. However, the pace of adoption is uncertain and depends on many external factors that are outside the control of any single project or investor group. It is also important to recognize that financial markets are driven by cycles. Periods of high optimism are often followed by corrections, and long periods of slow movement can suddenly shift when macroeconomic or regulatory conditions change. This is why long term investors usually focus more on fundamentals, adoption trends, and real world usage rather than short term price movements or social media narratives. At the same time, risk remains a core part of any investment discussion involving digital assets. XRP, like all cryptocurrencies, operates in a highly volatile environment. Prices can move sharply in both directions, and external factors such as regulation, market sentiment, and global economic conditions can all influence outcomes. This means that no prediction, no matter how confident it sounds, can be treated as certainty. From a responsible financial perspective, it is always important to approach such assets with caution, research, and awareness of risk. Diversification, long term planning, and understanding personal financial limits are essential when participating in markets like crypto. Emotional decisions based on hype or fear often lead to poor outcomes, while informed decisions based on realistic expectations tend to be more stable over time. In conclusion, XRP remains an asset that sits at the intersection of innovation and uncertainty. It continues to attract attention due to its potential role in global payments, but it also faces challenges related to regulation, adoption speed, and market competition. Large holdings and high profile financial discussions add interest, but they do not replace real world execution and measurable adoption. Financial disclaimer: this content is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Cryptocurrency markets are highly volatile and risky. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions and consult with a qualified financial advisor if needed. If you found this breakdown helpful, consider subscribing and staying updated for more deep analysis on XRP and global financial developments.